convidar
let's
as nossas
continue
palestras.
with the
Nosso
talks.
próximo tema
Our
será
next topic will
leilão
be
de importação
import
H2 Global.
auctions.
Conheça, por favor, o nosso palestrante.
Our next speaker.
Scheme H2 Global and the status quo and the current information about that. So I will start with very few words about Inicio, which is the company I work for. I am based in Santiago de Chile. My plan was also to travel to Fortaleza, but in the end, the travel connections were not easy. So it's a pity, but I'm happy that this is possible hybrid so that I can even go to my presentation. I will touch a little bit the context of H2 Global, why it was designed, this financial scheme. Then I will explain very shortly the mechanism, as I think a lot of you already know it. And then I come to the main point of my presentation, point 4, which is the awarding procedure, how the auctions will be organized, so what's coming in the next weeks. And after that, I will touch the key points of the hydrogen purchase agreements as they are foreseen by this funding scheme. After that, just an overview about the product eligibility criteria, and then also some draft and commercial key points of this hydrogen purchase agreements. So first of all, I work for Inicio. Inicio, for all that don't know it, is a strategy consultancy based in Brussels, in Belgium. We exist more than 15 years now, and we are advising both the public and private sector in all kinds of hydrogen, renewable hydrogen-related projects, and also in sustainable mobility. We have offices in Europe, in Brussels, Paris, and also in Rotterdam, where the important port is. But also in Latam, we have a huge office in Bogotá, in Colombia. Myself, I'm based in our office in Santiago de Chile. We have persons also representing Inicio in Mexico City. And recently we opened an office in Washington, D.C., which is focused on the North American market. And while we are a team of chemical engineers and also electrical and mechanical engineers and economists, myself, I'm an economist. So it's a very multidisciplinary team and very international. So we are touching these points together, composing the teams between the offices. And here you see a little bit where we have already delivered projects. So a lot of countries in Latin America. We have also worked in Brazil already, advising some project developers, also in Ceará, but not only. So we are also a little bit familiar with the context of the emerging hydrogen market in Brazil. And it's very nice to see this very high-level conference like this, where a lot of important topics are touched related to this emerging economy. And our clients, maybe just to mention very short, are from the whole value chain of hydrogen. So we have a little good all-around view and insights about their inquiries, their needs, how they work together, and what are the main topics that they need to have resolved. So, and our services reach from strategy consulting, which includes a lot of energy market studies about demand assessments of hydrogen in specific regions or countries of Latam. We have done a lot of regulation assessment to explain how hydrogen nowadays is regulated, what's coming in the future. We have done a lot of stakeholder mappings, project mappings, and also having advised companies in finding the suiting funding opportunities for their Power-to-X projects, both on national level and also international funding schemes. And this is also what brings me here today. We have also studied in detail the H2 Global funding scheme and also advising companies how to participate in the tender. And this is something I will share today. And the other pillar, just to mention, the project development assistance is all about systems engineering. So we are optimizing plant designs, the outputs. We see how the plans should be, the configuration, what are possible risks to be considered, and do pre-feasibility studies for all kinds of Power-to-X projects. So now I come to the main topic. So H2 Global, as you may heard, this is a funding scheme which shall support the project development of Power-to-X projects in non-European countries. Why? Because Germany, and not only Germany, but also the whole European Union, in order to fulfill their climate protection targets and to becoming carbon neutral by 2050, they need to import an important amount of hydrogen and its derivatives because they are not able to produce the whole amount that they would need in their own territories. So in early 2020, there arose the idea to design a funding scheme to support project development in foreign countries, which should help to cover the demand in Europe, especially in Germany. So it came initially from the German government, but also the European Commission approved the hydrogen, the program H2 Global, because the European Commission concluded that it complies also with the EU state aid rules, because it helps to contribute to the overall European Union climate targets set out in the Green Deal. So you see here a timeline, which a lot of steps. So this just show that this scheme has been developed during the last nearly 2 years. And there have been a lot of information and speculations about the specific, the specific eligibility criteria. And the last key date was in 13th of July, where the specific criteria were presented. And right now there is going on a market consultation, which is the second one, where project developers and all interested stakeholders can deliver their questions about this scheme via email until August 10th. But I will come to that a little bit later more. So in general, this funding scheme foresees a funding grant from the German federal government of 900 million euros for a time lapse of 10 years. And this for projects which meet certain sustainability and product eligibility criteria. And well, here a little bit more information. The funding scheme was developed by experts led by the German Society for International Cooperation, GIZ, which I know they will present after me also here. And it's one of 4 planned funding instruments related to the deployment of the global renewable hydrogen market. So there you see the 4, but what is here important is the H2 Global. And behind H2 Global, there's also a foundation. It's called H2 Global Stiftung or Foundation, which is a group of a lot of companies from the private sector that have been committed, or they have committed to promote these topics and to support the development of this market and sustainability criteria. And they also are supervising the scheme, and their role will be to ensure that the funds are being spent accordingly to the scheme design. So what is the mechanism? First of all, it's an auction-based mechanism, H2 Global. And these auctions will be organized by the company HINTCO. HINTCO means Hydrogen Intermediary Network Company, as you see here on the graph. So HINTCO is the intermediary between the project developers and the consumers, and they will organize annual auctions where they will sell the hydrogen or the derivatives, which they buy from the different producers in different countries. And for them, they will provide long-term hydrogen purchase agreements, about 10 years. So project developer in, for example, Brazil, if he is eligible to this funding scheme, you will get from HINTCO a hydrogen purchase agreement over 10 years with a specific agreed amount. And HINTCO will be the commercial off-taker of the part of the whole production. And then HINTCO will sell itself or themselves that amount to other consumers, both from the industry, from the transport sector, aviation or maritime, and also the energy sector. But this will be something they will assume the risk to sell this products to that different markets. So HINTCO is the guarantor of the offtake of this Power-to-X products, and thus helps to make these projects more feasible, because today it's difficult to find off-takers for products whose markets are recently under development, and we don't know what the premium prices will be, the consumers will pay for it. So it's a very, I think, well-designed scheme, and it's very well thought to support this kind of projects. And the information at the beginning of this year and also now was that at least 3 up to 6 projects per energy carrier will be selected or invited to the competitive dialogue, with the step 2 of the auction process, which I will explain in the next slide. And the energy carriers here eligible are hydrogen, ammonia, and methanol, and also e-kerosene for aviation could be a fuel eligible here. And the thought of the designers of the scheme of HINTCO, they foresee that the price gap between the production price, which you see here, is fixed by the HPA for 10 years. There's a fixed price for which in euros per ton of ammonia, for example, that HINTCO will pay. And on the other hand, the price from the markets of the consumers, they expect they will increase due to mechanisms like carbon taxes, for example, and the growing pressure to decarbonize industries and fuels and transport. So this price gap will be coming every time more lower. This is like the concept behind this. HINTCO announced that they will they award contracts in the auctions for the sellers at the lowest bid price and the highest sale price, so that they minimize the price gap. And also to mention that the price of the renewable hydrogen and its derivatives that the producers shall indicate, it includes both the production price and also the logistic costs of transportation until a port in Europe, which could be a port in Germany or Rotterdam, which I'll also explain afterwards. So I think it's not the key point, but just to mention, HINTCO is an actor which has limited risk. So they have been established with an equity of 25 million euros. So they are not able to assume a lot of risks. Thus, they have very defined actions they can assume. For example, they neither possess any manpower resources or logistic infrastructure, so they won't assume any transport and logistics of hydrogen and its derivatives. They are just the contractual off-taker and will structure the hydrogen purchase agreements and organize these auctions and ensure that the producers get paid. And they have designed a suitable commercial model for this. But HINTCO at no time will possess any product physically. So this is why I say they are the commercial off-takers, not the physical ones. Now there will be a lot of speculation during the last half year, where all project developers and other stakeholders following this process have been waiting for the specific product eligibility criteria to be published. And this, in the end, happened on 13th of July. There was a workshop organized by H2 Global Foundation and HINTCO and the German Federal Ministry for Economy and Climate. And they presented in this document, which is publicly available, and maybe some of you already have read it in detail. So I will just mention the key points outlined here, but I want to make also the disclaimer as outstanding here in this document that the content of this or the current status of the preparations of the first H2 Global tender are not maybe the final ones. So as H2 Global says, the final design of the tender might differ from the documents and design presented in this document. And this is because right now, as I mentioned, they are still ongoing the second market consultation where all interested stakeholders can deliver their questions on this email I outlined here. So what's coming next? I think this is the core message I wanted to transmit here in my presentation. The first tender will start this year or at the beginning of next year. And this is organized in a two-stage process. So nowadays we are in status quo in August 4th, today. And as you see on the left hand of this timeline, the end of market consultation is August 10th in 6 days. And then in HINTCO announced that the expected start of the pre-qualification process of this tender will be at the end of August. My feeling is maybe first half of September. Down in green, you see my own estimates based on the last months and the ongoing process. So about in the first half of September, there would be a call for request for participation. So this is unlimited. Every project developer could submit its application within a time frame of 30 days. This tender will be noticed by the Publications Office of the European Union, normally through TED, which is the Electronic Database for Tenders. And then once published, there will be 30 days, as I mentioned, for a project developer to submit its application. And then the stage 1 will be running, which is the pre-qualification phase, which in total will lead 2 to 3 months. And in this time, HINTCO and the H2 Global Foundation, they will revise the applications and check whether a project developer is eligible to pass to the second stage, which is already the tender stage. And this is because they want to limit the number of participants, and they do this pre-selection based on criteria like you see here, the references of the companies. So do they have sufficient level of experience, which is demonstrated by suitable references in the past with regards to renewable energy projects, to exportation, etc. This is something I guess, but this is not informed so far. So there will be informed criteria about the creditworthiness of the companies, so the ratio between assets and liabilities. Also, the minimum yearly turnover will be one pre-selection criteria without any details so far. And also the human and technical resources the company has to bring in. So these will be the pre-selection criteria. But as I mentioned, these are not outlined further. And they are all aligned with certain legal norms and standards, both from Germany and also from the European Union. So once this pre-qualification stage 1 is finished, there will be a list of bidders or consortia to be considered, so the filtered shortlist of the applicants. And the bidders that will not be considered because they don't comply with this pre-qualification criteria will get a notification letter. My own estimate would be that this will happen at the end of November. Then HINTCO foresees a short transition phase, about 15 days, where maybe possible complaints will be revised, etc., conversations. And after that, there would start the second phase of this tender process, which is the tender itself, with the call for offers. So there will be another publication of a call for offers. And the bidding period starts at the moment when these offers are digitally published. And then again, the bidders have a legal minimum time for application of 30 days, so 1 month. And then HINTCO and the jury, I would say, will revise these applications during 3 to 5 months or 3 to 4 months, because in general they said that the second stage will lead approximately 3 to 5 months. And also they stated that if necessary, there will be negotiation rounds in this course, sharpening the specifications and possible extensions. So after that second phase, there will be informed a letter to the awarded bidders, which will be in the first or second quarter of the next year. So maybe March, April 2023. But as I already mentioned, the final tender criteria will be published once they are finalized and once all this market consultation process is finished, where the idea is that HINTCO will take all the doubts and all the questions from the project developers and stakeholders to consider them in the final design. So this already I explained. This is the pre-qualification criteria for the bidders. And what about once a bidder would have been declared eligible or selected, then they would receive from HINTCO the so-called hydrogen purchase agreements for a time lapse of 10 years. And they would get a fixed amount of finance or grant for this time of 10 years. So if it's 900 million euros in total for 10 years, if we think of it would be maybe 3 project developers, so they get each one 300 million euros about 10 years, so 30 million a year, for example. But this is just in case there would be 3 project developers awarded. These could be more. And And yes, here the contract is like a take or pay. So Hindco assumes the commercial risks, so they will buy the renewable ammonia or methanol for the fixed price stated in the hydrogen purchase agreement. And they assume the risk they couldn't sell it at a very competitive price to consumers. This is the risk they assume. And on the other hand, the producers need to assume the risks that they will have to transport. Okay, perfect. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so this is a little bit about the commercial key points of the hydrogen purchase agreements, which you can also revise in that document. And then just to mention, yeah, these are the last slides. There will be certain points of delivery or ports. So they could be ports in Germany, Belgium, or the Netherlands. If there would be a change of port of delivery of the products, so this would have to be mutually agreed with Hindco within 18 months notice period. And yeah, the delivery schedule will be in 2 to 12 equal lots. But I think also this is something subject to the final definition. This should be mutually agreed between Hindco and the product, the producer. And yeah, the seller will provide customary proof of delivery to Hindco. And yeah, at the port where the products arrive, then the consumers will be in charge to transport them from them to their consumption points. So in the end, just to mention that there have been a lot of product eligibility criteria stated in this document. And maybe the most important ones for project developers to have in mind are the criteria related to the renewability of the electricity used to produce the hydrogen and its derivatives. They are very aligned with the Renewable Energy Directive amendment, the RED II. And they make mention to the renewability, the additionality, and the correlation in terms of temporal, geographical, and these correlations need to be fulfilled. And there have been also a lot of specific criteria related to the carbon footprint of the products, which includes the transport. They shall pass certain greenhouse gas threshold. And there are also requirements for the water uses. So, for example, if desalinated water is used, this also needs to be operated, the desalination plant, with renewable energy. And there's not the possibility to use any basin water regions which are desert, or also the site selection. There needs to be proof that there's no land grabbing, there's no conflict with other land users, etc. So there are very strict sustainability criteria, also about the waste and pollutant management, and the producers will need to do like monitoring and verification of the compliance of this criteria, including local labor and social standards based on International Labour Organization's standards. And just one thing I wanted to mention, because this was also always the big doubt, because in terms of the eligibility of the electricity, there's a lot of conversation about the bidding zones in Europe, and that the electrolyzer needs to be in the same bidding zone where the electricity comes from. And then there was raised the question, what about countries where the definition of bidding zones is different to those in Germany or the European Union? And this is also a new information by H2 Global, that in that cases where it's not defined clearly, the bidding zone, these two criteria apply. So the maximum distance between power generation, the power plant, and the hydrogen generation, this means the electrolyzer installation, shall be 50 kilometers, not more, or the bidding zone is the country. But here also arise some questions which need to be clarified still, because here would be the question which option applies when. So this is the only information that was given so far. I won't go in detail, but this is something I already mentioned. There are very important environmental, social, and additional sustainability criteria you can find in the document. So there are a lot of standards that project developers will need to comply with. And this is my last slide. There are still several uncertainties.
Sorry. Excuse me.
Revise the document.
Oi, Núria?
Arise many
Núria?
questions. For example, what about the
Lady
possibility
Núria?
to combine H2 Global funding with other funds if it not
Núria?
covers the whole production amount? There has been, for example,
Núria? Oi?
Requirements for the electrolyzers that they don't receive any
Núria?
CAPEX and OPEX funding grants from other sources. So this is under the
Núria?
so the question,
Me ouve?
Yeah?
Sim. Ok. Nós temos mais 1 minuto, porque eu vou ter que abrir para perguntas.
Meu last slide.
Ok, vamos ter que abrir para perguntas aqui no auditório. E aí, mais 1 minutinho para encerrar, por favor. Obrigada.
Okay. And so as I mentioned, there are some questions open that are right now raised in context of this market consultation. For example, also what about the transport of the ammonia, of the methanol? Is it possible to mix these green carriers with non-green carriers when transporting them via ships or storing them, like the mass balance system is working? So these are questions. And just in time, that was my last slide. Thank you very much. As I mentioned, there are a lot of details, and I think it's good to revise it in detail, the document. And now I'm happy to hear your questions.
Okay. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you here. Alguém no auditório tem alguma pergunta para a senhora Núria? Ok.
Guten Morgen, Frau Hartmann. Es ist nett, Sie kennenzulernen. Of course, I will talk in English. I have just a few questions. Does HINCO only purchase pure hydrogen, or does the purchase and the contractual arrangement refer to the hydrogen compounds, ammonia, methanol, and synthetic fuels as well?
Yes, it's about ammonia, ethanol, and synthetic fuels. And maybe just to mention that, of course, nowadays it's not commercially feasible to transport pure hydrogen. So it will be about ammonia and methanol and e-fuels, yes.
Okay, then for the green methanol with needed CO2, can that be obtained from industrial processes, or would that have to be also come from renewable sources?
A good question, and this is also something that is not outlined specifically in this tender documents that have been published. The important point is to have the carbon footprint, so that it's not about more than a certain amount. So this is the only aspect that was published so far.
All right. And how's the payment formally handled? And also in addition to that, is it permissible to demand annual price adjustments?
Yes, as the tender documents inform, there will be a fixed payment of a certain amount, like tons of green ammonia, for the 10 years. But the volatility of the price from the selling will be assumed by HINCO. So the price will be fixed in the hydrogen purchase agreements. So as I understand from the documents, there won't be any price adjustments.
Okay, but the purchase price is then in euros, US dollar?
Yes, they outline euros, but as I mentioned, maybe in the final documents, we have to wait for them, but yes.
All right. Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah, hello.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask if there's a limit of volume to can bid at the tender.
Very good question. No, because the tender is not about the volume, but they they deliver to the developers a certain financial amount. So in the end, for example, you are a project developer and you will get, you get 30 million a year. So you have to deal with that. You have to see how much of your production you can sell for that at the end. Because it's not about the agreement, the hydrogen purchase agreement is not defining a certain amount. It's defining the amount, a physical amount. It's defining the financial budget, the grant, the product producers get. But it's not about the volume. It's about the price they get, the grant.
Okay, thank you.
One quick question. You said the port eligible is Rotterdam. Is Rostock or other ports also viable?
Yes, I remember in the first document right now they didn't specify more, but the first one was, for example, Duisburg, which is also a port, inland port in Germany, and there was Rotterdam, and there's like a triangle. So they have a triangle of ports which are included. It's not possible to sell it to Pesem in Portugal, for example, but there's a triangle between Belgium, Netherlands, and Germany.
Okay. Thank you very much.